Well, hello there. I am Cynthia Wright, creator and the founder of The Waiting Room Life, and I want to welcome you back to the channel. And if you are new to the channel, welcome, and I hope you come back. So today, I wanted to share with you 3 things that you should consider before you pass him up. Him who? The him that is a potential suitor and who possibly wants to spend more time to get to know you, to figure out, hey, is God putting us together? Are you the one? Girl, you look like you the one. And so, but you might, be looking at him like, bruh, you ain't the one. And so I want to talk about these 3 things that sometimes women pause over because men and women, they come to a relationship with 2 different things, very different things that sometimes can clash. Usually, women, we come to a relationship with fantasy, right? And so what do I mean? What do I mean about fantasy? Just think about the conditioning that we've had through movies and books and, conversations, that either we've had, later in life or conversations that we've heard growing up, things that were modeled before us or whatever. And so we come to a relationship with fantasy in general. Now, add being saved, coming into the church, coming into the kingdom of God with some added things that we've added to our fantasy, right? And so we come to the relationship with, certain expectations and ideals and different things like that. Now, for a man, he comes to the relationship, he steps into the relationship with pressure, right? He already feels pressure. Not just pressure to be married. That ain't even what I'm talking about. Pressure to live up to the fantasy that most men know that we as women have, right? And so I want to talk about 3 things that you should consider if you are in a relationship with somebody and currently, and you're trying to figure out if he's the one, or you are in the process of like, hey, Cynthia, I am moving, I'm walking in faith, I know that I'm about to connect with someone, or it's just a matter of time. And so this information is for you as well. So number 1, the first thing that I want to share with you, or I would like for you to consider before you pass him up, is his spirituality, right? A lot of times, there's been this messaging, that a man has to be the spiritual head, and, he has to be this spiritual giant, and he has to, we have to pray together. He needs to be the one that's leading us in prayer. And, he has to, be, know the Hebrew and the Greek and, all of this stuff. Now, am I saying that he is not the spiritual head? Because he is. He is. God sees him as a spiritual head. But what I'm saying is, what does that really look like? And a lot of times we are wanting something that we ourselves are not. We want a spiritual giant, and we're not even a spiritual minion. We want a man who is praying, who's on his knees, 24/7, when we do good to bless our food. And again, the balance to what I'm saying is, he may not be a spiritual giant. He may not know the Hebrew and the Greek. But the question is, does he have an established prayer life before he met you? Now, it may not be all deep and in depth, maybe like yours, but does he have an established prayer life before he met you? He may not know the Hebrew and the Greek. He may not know Genesis to Revelation, honey, and just can recite it, without looking it up or anything like that, maybe like you. But is he a doer of the word that he does know? And the reason I say that is something to consider is because I am mentoring, because again, primarily I walk with women who are single, but I also walk with married women. Sometimes I walk with them when they were single and now they're married, or hey, when we connected, they were married. So, but I know I'm walking with somebody now whose husband reads the Bible every day, like every day. And when he sits down to read the Bible, everybody in the house knows, hey, so and so, Dad is reading the Bible. Quiet on the set. Dad is reading the Bible. But even though he reads the Bible every day, the treatment of his wife is not honoring. He doesn't, when the book closes, there is no fruit of his reading in his life, especially as it relates to how he treats his wife. So reading the Bible is not necessarily a gauge. It's the fruit. And the reason why I'm saying that is because sometimes we want these forms of godliness present without realizing that, wait a minute, I need to inspect the fruit. So, another thing as it relates to, being this spiritual giant, he doesn't know his God-given purpose. Well, do you know your God-given purpose? Right? Sometimes I even remember when I came into the kingdom, me even understanding my purpose, it was like an unfolding. Like my purpose were connected to gifts that I didn't even really realize or know that I had them as like gifts. So it unfolded. So sometimes, women are inclined to like, well, he don't even know his purpose. Do you know your purpose? And even if you do know your purpose, does that mean that he is not a good fit? Because maybe God is connecting you with him to help him define the purpose that's there. God created the wife for the husband. The Bible says in Genesis, it's not good for man to be alone. I'm going to create him a helpmate. I'm going to create him someone to complement him. Maybe you are the complement that he needs. So he may not be that thing yet, right? However, he has the potential to be that. And I want to, even give the balance to that. Am I saying, take somebody who looks like they're going to do better later? Take somebody, who doesn't have a prayer life, doesn't go to church, no, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying, check your fantasy. Check your fantasy and your expectation before you pass him up, and make sure that no, he's a little carnal. No, it's more than him not reading the word. It's like not only does he not read, but he's not a doer of the word, or he goes to church and he reads the Bible, but he doesn't have any fruit in his life. Inspect that way instead of making determinations, out of our fantasy, right? Now, the other thing that I want you to consider is his financial standing. Let me tell you, when I was like, Lord, I need somebody who's making six figures. I don't want to work. I want to stay at home. I just want to shop. I just want to, make sure the house is clean. I wanted a man who was already financially situated where I didn't have to do nothing. Okay. Now, that is not the man that God connected me with. That is not the man that I married in 2004. However, the man that I did marry, who was not earning six figures, had a very strong work ethic. The man that I married, who did not have six figures, understood money, finances, did not have any debt, right? He understood work and a strong work ethic. He had his own car. The job that he had, and he still has to that day, when he would go to work, he didn't miss work. I am so sorry, ladies. Wait a minute. He didn't miss work. He didn't, if the bus didn't come, he knew how to get to work. He was not waiting on somebody to take him to work. He understood work and responsibility, even though he was not making six figures. And so a lot of times, and again, this is another part of that fantasy. If a brother, he doesn't have some corporate job, or, he's not making these long dollars and all of that. Again, I go back to, are you making six figures? Because the thing is this, you always want to become the thing that you want. And it's kind of hard to demand something of somebody else if it's not already operating in you. or already present in your own life. So it's like, okay, you want somebody, who's making six figures, or who is financially stable, or would enable you to stay home and different things like that. But are you making that type of money that would afford you a certain lifestyle that you want a man to come to the table with? Because what's the other thing to consider? He may not be making six figures, but when you get married, it's no longer, these two individual people living individual lives as a single over here and a single over here, and they come together as roommates. No. When the two become one, is it possible that his financial income and your financial income can make the dream work, right? Is it that his financial astuteness and your financial astuteness complement one another that makes the dream work? And what I mean by that is maybe you or him are not necessarily disciplined in the spending, right? But as you come together, you come in agreement with how you're going to spend. We're going to make sure that we consult each other before we spend a certain amount. And, what you're making and what I'm making, it's not like, okay, you're going to pay the electric and the gas and this, and then I'm going to pay the, no. Both of the monies come together for the administration of the house, and it is more than enough, right, for you all to be comfortable together, instead of, well, if he doesn't come with this, then he's not the one. Because I can promise you, I've seen women miss potential suitors that would have been wonderful toward, to them, right? But they were looking at things out of fantasy and considering things again out of fantasy as far as like finances and stuff like that, that the ship sailed. They missed that one, right? So number 3, I want you to consider his educational status. Some women are degreed, and they will not yoke up with someone who is not degreed. And I don't want you to hear me saying any of these things as if there's something wrong with it. If that's your preference, that's your preference. What I'm saying is, consider he may not have a degree. You might not have a degree, but does that discount him because you degreed up and he's not? There's so many, especially like once you are a certain age, like back in the day, like with my husband, and it wasn't that, a lot, people didn't go to college because my husband is 63-ish, maybe. There's a 13-year difference between him and I. And so growing up, I even remember there were more trade schools, right? So college wasn't like, you had people who would go to college, military, and then we had a bunch of trade schools. So some people would, out of high school, they had like culinary, beauticians, plumbing, electrical. You could literally go to high school, get a trade, come out and go right into that industry. So a lot of men and women were not necessarily degreed during that time. So, but it's not like when I think about my husband, he may not have a degree, but when I tell you the man is brilliant, when I tell you that this man can literally, if he desired so, have his own business, run a corporation, like he is just that brilliant. Now, does he have a degree behind his name? He doesn't, right? But I can tell you that he is not only my number one cheerleader in my business, but it's like he kind of, gives me ideas and different things that I need to do and, all those things, right? And so just even in how we run our household and the things that we invest in, and I mean, the dude is brilliant, but he's not degreed. Now, if I were, in the mindset of, well, if he don't have a degree, then hey, it just ain't gonna work, I would have missed out on so many blessings that were directly connected to him, that like the specific blessings that I had. And it's not that God could not, bless me with somebody else or anything like that, but there are specific things that have happened in my life that were a direct cause of me being married to him. And had I looked at, his spirit, like, and even spiritually, like when my husband and I, when we got together, if you look behind me, guys, I'm a reader. I love books. I love learning, right? And so I took that same passion of learning and reading into the kingdom. So when I got saved, I love reading the Bible. I love researching words and the Hebrew and the Greek and the history and, all the things. But my husband, on the other hand, yeah, he read the Bible, but he wasn't a student of the word in the terms of he's breaking down the words and he's looking, looking under the hood, looking, examining the history and the culture. And my husband read the word. And the difference between him and I, even spiritually, was he was more of a doer of the word at that time than I was. I just had a bunch of head knowledge. And so I just really wanted to encourage you ladies who might be waiting, right? I don't want you to hear me say lower your standards, because I would say 100% do not lower your standards. What I'm saying is consider these three things. Consider his spirit, his spirituality, right? He may not be a giant, but does he do the word that he does know? Does he have an established prayer life? Does he have an established habit of going to church before he met you that you all can build upon? Consider that. Consider the money that he's making. He may not be making six figures, but does the brother have a strong work ethic, right? God created women. We have a need for security. Does he get up and go to work whether it's raining, whether it's not? Will he walk to work? Does he need your car in order to, help bring home the bacon, right? So consider that. Consider that. Can you, come together with your monies to make the dream work? And the third thing, consider his education, right? Or the lack thereof. He may not be degreed, right? But is he able to sustain himself, provide for his own self in life without a degree? Is he working without a degree? Because his education, whether or not he has paper, that means nothing. Does he have a skill that's going to provide for the life that you guys can have together? So I really just wanted you to consider these things, because one of the worst things in life, and I'll end with this. Have you ever been in a store, right? And honey, take Walmart, for example. You're in line, you're in this long line, right? And you are waiting and you are waiting and waiting. And you just happen to notice that, nobody's in that line over there. And after maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes of waiting, you hop out and you jump into this line where nobody is, right? And it's just like that. A lot of times we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting. And the thing that we're waiting on possibly is in the line where there's not really many people at all. Why? Because they haven't necessarily considered the things that I've gone over in this video and put it in its proper perspective. So sometimes you wait longer than you maybe have to because you haven't considered a possible suitor that will be perfect for you if you put some things into its proper perspective. Okay, I hope I was clear. I hope that was helpful. Again, this is Cynthia Wright, creator and founder of The Waiting Room Life, and I will see you in the next video.